They told us it was just a show about nothing, but behind every laugh hid something darker. Banned episodes erased from history. Scandals, NBC buried. Some actors were even forced into silence for years. Now, after endless cover-ups, Seinfeld finally reveals what most fans never figured out. You won't believe these things actually happened. Number 1. The cold-blooded death of Susan Ross. If you thought Susan's death on Seinfeld was just another quirky gag, wait until you hear the truth. On screen, George's fiancée collapses after licking toxic wedding invitation envelopes. More than 30 million people watched live as George sat there, almost relieved that his engagement nightmare was over. Fans laughed, but the backstory is darker than anyone guessed. Jason Alexander later revealed that no one in the cast could click with actress Heidi Swedberg. Her timing clashed, her rhythm felt off, and every scene was a struggle. One day, Julia Louis-Dreyfus sighed, "Don't you want to just kill her?" Larry David shot back with one word, kabang. And that's exactly what happened. Instead of a breakup, they killed Susan in one of the most bizarrely cruel ways ever aired on network TV. Alexander later admitted, "We all just went, 'Oh my God, this is horrible,' and also brilliant." It's shocking when you realize Susan's death wasn't just comedy. It was frustration from the cast, written directly into the script. What looked like an outrageous punchline was actually payback, broadcast to millions of people across America. Number 2. Jason Alexander's threat to quit Seinfeld. George Costanza could have vanished before the show even hit its stride. Why? Because Jason Alexander was ready to quit. And he meant it. In Season 3, the episode The Pen aired. Jerry and Elaine go to Florida, but George and Kramer are nowhere to be found. Alexander was furious. He'd left behind a thriving Broadway career, even a Tony Award in 1989, to gamble on this show about nothing. And now he was being treated like a side character? The very next week, he stormed into Larry David's office. "If you do that again, do it permanently," he warned. "I'll go back to Broadway." This wasn't empty talk. At the time, Seinfeld wasn't yet the juggernaut it became. Ratings hovered under 20 million, and NBC was unsure of its future. Losing Alexander could have collapsed the delicate balance of the four main characters. Thankfully, Larry never repeated the mistake. George stayed. By Season 5, Seinfeld was drawing 30 to 35 million viewers weekly, and George Costanza became a pop culture icon. But behind the laughs, one angry actor's ultimatum nearly changed TV history forever. Number 3. The real Costanza's $100 million lawsuit. Think George Costanza was only Larry David's alter ego? Think again. The name Costanza came from Jerry's real college friend, Michael Costanza. And he hated it. At first, he stayed quiet. But as Seinfeld exploded into a billion-dollar phenomenon, Mike started to feel humiliated. People teased him constantly, calling him George, associating him with lies, pettiness, and failure. By 1998, after the finale pulled in 76.3 million viewers, he snapped. He filed a $100 million lawsuit against Jerry, Larry, and NBC. His claim? The show invaded his privacy and destroyed his reputation. National headlines called it The Real Costanza versus Seinfeld. But the court dismissed it, ruling the statute of limitations had expired since the show premiered in 1989. Mike wasn't done. He wrote a tell-all book, The Real Seinfeld, as told by the real Costanza, where he vented his bitterness and accused Jerry of exploiting their friendship for profit. The irony is staggering. While George became one of the most beloved TV characters ever, the real Costanza ended up remembered for a lawsuit that went nowhere. It's the kind of story that proves truth really is stranger than fiction, and much darker, too. Number 4. The finale that stole Frank Sinatra's last moments. Did you know that Frank Sinatra's death is tied directly to the Seinfeld finale? On May 14, 1998, 76.3 million people tuned in to watch Jerry and the gang get locked up. It was the biggest TV event of the decade. But while America laughed, tragedy struck. That same night, Sinatra suffered a fatal heart attack. His daughter Nancy later admitted she didn't make it to the hospital in time. Why? Because she was at home watching Seinfeld. She confessed, "I got so involved watching the damn show that I never got over to my dad's." Just imagine that guilt. Missing your father's last moments because of a sitcom. And not just any father. One of the most legendary entertainers in history. The eerie overlap turned the finale into more than just TV history. For the Sinatra family, it was the night they lost their patriarch while the rest of the world was glued to a show about nothing. It's a chilling reminder of how entertainment can distract us from the moments that matter most. Number 5. The dance that could have ended Julia Louis-Dreyfus's career. Imagine risking your entire career on one of the worst dance moves ever put on TV. That's exactly what Julia Louis-Dreyfus did in Season 8 with Elaine's now infamous Little Kicks. On the surface, it's hilarious. Elaine flailing her arms and kicking off beat while everyone around her stares in horror. But behind the scenes, it was terrifying. Writer Spike Feresten admitted the crew panicked. Producer Jennifer Crittenden even whispered, "Are you sure you're not ruining her career?" And they weren't wrong to worry. Seinfeld was pulling in 35 million viewers weekly at the time. One humiliating performance could brand Julia forever. Even Larry David hated the idea and said it shouldn't happen. But Julia went all in. Do you know the result? The audience roared. Critics called it one of the funniest moments of the entire series. And Julia didn't just survive. She won an Emmy for the role. What could have been a career-ending embarrassment became comedy gold. Still, when you watch Elaine's dance today, remember, Julia wasn't just being silly. She was gambling her entire reputation, and she somehow won. Number 6. Alton Beans, the guest star who terrified the cast with a knife. Not many guest stars can say they scared Jerry Seinfeld so badly they were banned from the show. Lawrence Tierney can. Tierney played Elaine's father, Alton Beans, in Season 2's The Jacket. He nailed the role. Gruff, intimidating, a perfect fit. The producers planned to bring him back for more episodes. But then things got weird. During filming, Tierney spotted a butcher knife on Jerry's apartment set. He slipped it under his jacket. When Jerry asked what he was hiding, Tierney pulled the knife out and pretended to stab him, while humming the Psycho theme. The room froze. Nobody laughed. Michael Richards later admitted the set went from comedy to horror in seconds. After that, the producers quietly agreed. Tierney would never return. It's shocking when you realize how different Seinfeld could have been. Elaine's dad was meant to be recurring, maybe even a big part of the show. Instead, one terrifying joke with a knife killed the character instantly. Number 7. The dark truth behind Festivus. Festivus might be one of the funniest gags in Seinfeld history. George's dad, Frank Costanza, invents a holiday for the rest of us, complete with an aluminum pole and the infamous airing of grievances. It's hilarious. But here's the part you don't know. Festivus was real. And it wasn't funny. Writer Dan O'Keefe revealed that his own father created Festivus back in the 1960s. It started as a weird family tradition on December 23rd, the anniversary of his parents' first date. Instead of joy, the O'Keefe family Festivus was full of tension. His dad would pull out tape recordings, demand grievances be aired, and force everyone to sit through his bizarre rituals. Dan once said, "It wasn't a joke. It was creepy." Imagine being a kid, trapped in a living room while your father makes you tell your siblings and mother everything you hate about them. That's not comedy. That's trauma dressed as tradition. When Dan pitched it for Seinfeld, Larry David loved the insanity and turned it into a classic episode. Fans laughed, made t-shirts, even celebrated Festivus for fun. But underneath the laughs is a truly dark origin story. A holiday born out of dysfunction. Number 8. Jerry's real-life relationship scandal. Okay, buckle up, because this one is wild. While Jerry was on top of the world in the mid-1990s, pulling in 30+ million viewers every week, his personal life nearly blew everything apart. At the height of Seinfeld's fame, Jerry, then 38 years old, started dating Shoshana Lonstein. The shocking part? She was just 17, still in high school. The tabloids went insane. Headlines accused him of grooming, fans were horrified, and yet Jerry shrugged it off, calling the relationship fun. They dated for 4 years. 4 years. All while Jerry was one of the most famous comedians in America. Think about this. In 1995, Seinfeld was making NBC hundreds of millions of dollars in ad revenue, and its star was parading around New York with a teenager. By today's standards, it would have destroyed his career instantly. Back then, the ratings never dipped. Fans laugh at his 73 on-screen girlfriends across 180 episodes, but his real-life romance is the one that still makes jaws drop. Every time this story resurfaces, new generations of fans can't believe it actually happened, and yet it did, right in the middle of TV's biggest comedy. Number 9. Jerry Seinfeld turned down $5 million an episode. Here's something that still blows Hollywood insiders' minds. At the end of season 9, NBC wasn't ready to say goodbye. The network executives were desperate to lock Jerry in for one more season, so desperate they offered him $5 million per episode. Think about that number. 22 episodes at $5 million each would have made him $110 million in 1 year. To put it in perspective, the Friends cast was still fighting to get $1 million each around the same time. Jerry was staring at 5 times that, all for telling jokes. But Jerry said no. Why? Because of the number 9. He believed 9 was perfect, the number of completion in numerology. He told reporters, 10 is lame, 9 is cool. And just like that, he walked away. Fans couldn't believe it. His co-stars couldn't believe it. NBC executives practically begged. But Jerry refused to cash in, leaving the show at its peak with 76 million people watching the finale. Turning down $110 million wasn't just a business move. It was Jerry Seinfeld writing his own ending and proving he was willing to leave money on the table for legacy. Who does that? Number 10. The Puerto Rican Day Parade episode got banned. Here's one of the darkest stains on Seinfeld's legacy. Season 9 delivered the Puerto Rican Day, and it quickly became infamous. In the episode, the gang gets stuck in traffic during New York's real Puerto Rican Day Parade. Harmless enough, until Kramer accidentally sets fire to a Puerto Rican flag. And then, in front of 38.8 million viewers, he stomps on it to put out the flames. The backlash was immediate and explosive. Manuel Mirabal, president of the National Puerto Rican Coalition, called it an unconscionable insult. Protesters demanded the episode be banned, and NBC had no choice but to pull it from syndication. For years, the episode was a ghost, erased, as if it never existed. Think about that. The second highest rated episode in Seinfeld history, watched by nearly 40 million people, became so offensive it was locked away for 4 years. Not until 2002 did it return quietly to reruns. Fans still argue if it was edgy satire or outright cultural disrespect. But one thing's certain, Seinfeld, the show that claimed no hugging, no learning, ended up teaching the network a brutal lesson about crossing the wrong line. Number 11. Julia Louis-Dreyfus was humiliated to tears. Julia Louis-Dreyfus, the queen of Elaine's sass, had a moment on set that was anything but funny. During season 3, she was 5 months pregnant. Elaine, of course, wasn't. That meant the wardrobe team had to hide her baby bump with coats, props, and clever blocking. But Jerry? He cracked a joke that cut deep. He suggested they just write in that Elaine got fat this season. Julia burst into tears right there on set. She later admitted it was one of the lowest points of her career. Remember, this wasn't just any show. By that time, Seinfeld was pulling 30 million viewers an episode. The pressure to look flawless was intense, and the last thing she needed was her co-star mocking her body. In the end, the producers scrapped Jerry's idea and chose to hide the pregnancy. But the sting of that comment stayed with Julia for years. Fans are stunned whenever they hear this story. Jerry Seinfeld himself, the face of the show, reducing his Emmy-winning co-star to tears with a joke. Number 12. The real Kramer felt cheated and exploited. Everyone loved Kramer, right? Michael Richards turned him into a legend. But here's the twist. The real Kramer, Kenny Kramer, Larry David's neighbor, walked away with next to nothing. Larry and Jerry offered him just $1,000 for the rights to use his name. That's it. A measly check. Meanwhile, the show went on to make over $3 billion in syndication, DVD sales, and streaming. Billion, with a B. Kenny never saw another cent. He tried to cash in by launching the Kramer Reality Tour, where tourists paid to ride a bus around New York and see the real-life inspirations for the show. It became a quirky sideshow, but still pennies compared to what NBC and Jerry were making. Michael Richards even refused to meet Kenny, afraid it would mess up his portrayal. So the man who inspired Kramer, the neighbor whose quirks launched a TV icon, became a footnote, hustling with his bus tours while the show printed money. Fans are stunned when they hear it. The funniest character on Seinfeld came from a real guy, but that real guy never got rich. He got $1,000. That's Hollywood for you. Number 13. NBC almost killed The Chinese Restaurant. Today, critics call The Chinese Restaurant one of the greatest sitcom episodes ever. But back in 1991, NBC executives nearly killed it. And then, what happened? Nothing. Literally. Jerry, George, and Elaine just waited for a table. No action, no cutaways, no plot. Just waiting. NBC hated it. One exec said, "It's not television, it's a mistake." Larry David refused to back down. He told the network this was the heart of Seinfeld. Comedy mined from nothing. He even threatened to quit if they pulled the plug. Against their instincts, NBC aired it. 18 million people tuned in. The audience laughed, critics raved, and the episode became a game changer. What the network thought was suicide became proof that Seinfeld could break every rule in sitcom history. But imagine if Larry had caved. Imagine if NBC had forced him to write a normal episode. The boldest experiment in sitcom storytelling would have been erased, lost forever. Instead, The Chinese Restaurant became a classic. A reminder that sometimes the scariest gamble makes the biggest legend. Number 14. The episode about guns, NBC refused to air. There's a reason Seinfeld called itself a show about nothing. Because when it tried to be about something, like gun ownership, it went completely off the rails. Season 2 almost featured an episode called The Bet. The plot: Jerry buys a handgun. George and Elaine get dragged into the chaos. That's it. But here's the shocking part. They actually started filming it. Cast and crew sat down for the table read, ran through the lines, and halfway through, they stopped. Dead silence. Larry David looked around and finally said, "This doesn't work." The actors hated it. Julia Louis-Dreyfus called it wrong. Jerry later admitted trying to make guns funny just was no fun. NBC pulled the plug immediately. Think about how rare that is. By season 2, the network had ordered just a handful of episodes. Canceling one could have sunk the whole show, but they risked it anyway. And it makes you wonder, if the bet had aired, would Seinfeld have been canceled for being too dark before it ever got popular? Instead, the script got buried. Fans only know about it today because Jerry finally confessed on Reddit. So now you know the secrets Seinfeld tried to hide for decades. But which of these shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more hidden Hollywood truths that will leave you speechless.